Emre Erdoğan from Istanbul Bilgi University, Turkey. I will try to make a short summary of my paper about the populist reactions in Turkey during the war in Ukraine. Before moving forward, I want to underline some points about populist foreign policies. First of all, it's not surprising that their power is limited. In some countries, foreign policy is highly institutionalized. That's why the room of maneuver for politicians is very limited. They cannot change the direction of foreign policy. Secondly, even if they are in power, they need to make some bargainings with other actors, and they need to give some compromises. They cannot pursue their own policies. On the other hand, the geography of the country, the level of economic development, and the previous commitments or alliances of the country, they are also limiting the room of maneuver of populist leaders. Another point here is that populists, they are more powerful than their opposition because they have a kind of veto power. They can veto decisions of the government or other political actors by using their power. When we are talking about the populist foreign policy, we need to think about their style. First of all, we know that they have a Manichaean worldview. They tend to perceive the world as black and white. That's why they are thinking through antagonisms between good and evil. Generally, they are representing the people, which is the good, and the rest is the evil. They have a strong anti-elite rhetoric. They don't love elites. They are acting against elites. That's why they don't like international institutions. It doesn't mean that they don't prefer multilateralism. Generally, they don't like the multilateral institutions of the previous era or the establishment. They are generally nationalistic or nativist. That's why they are preferring to conduct some nationalist policies. But the most important component of a populist foreign policy is the personalization of foreign policy. What does it mean? In a populist zeitgeist, the leader of the party is the embodiment of the people's will in every area of life. That's why he's a male, not surprisingly. He's representing the interests and the will of the people against the interests of the establishment. That's why we can easily see that under the populist, foreign policy is becoming very personalized and very dependent on the personality of the leader. This is the main lines of the populist foreign policy. When we talk about Turkish foreign policy in the war in Ukraine, we can see that it's coincided with the U-turn in the foreign policy of Turkey. During 2000, Turkey pursued a very assertive, very active foreign policy, especially during the under the ministership of Davutoğlu. But country now is facing with economic problems such as inflation, unemployment, exchange crisis, and we have a lot of political crisis. We will have a presidential election, parliamentary election in June, and perhaps we had a bad experience of earthquake, which will create a kind of crisis for. The definition of the Turkish foreign policy about the Ukraine is balanced. It's clearly defined as a balanced approach to the war. Turkey tried to act as a mediator, especially in the early days of the war. In March 2022, we organized a meeting in Istanbul to draw a kind of communication between parties. Leader Erdoğan has strong relations with both leaders. He personally underlined this fact, and he several times communicated with leaders of countries. And another point here that Turkey acted as a facilitator of the grain deal, which is very important for the war and the rest of the world. Turkey provided humanitarian aid. to Ukraine. Turkey used monetary treaty as an instrument. Turkey continued to send military equipment to Ukraine, especially Bayraktar drones. These are Turkey's positive approach to Ukraine. On the other hand, Turkey signed the UN resolution against Russia, but it didn't obey the sanctions. And lastly, Turkey vetoed NATO membership of Sweden and Finland. We can add all the stuff on the Russian side. That's why we are calling this policy as balanced. Why Turkey is pursuing that kind of balanced policy? Answer is clear. Political realities. Incoming, we have a kind of critical elections, and there's a need for Russian support for the government. And we have some economic realities. We are experiencing a kind of economic crisis since 2021, and Turkey needs Russian money and investment in our country. That's why Turkish leaders, they are motivated by these realities. When we look at the rhetoric of Erdoğan, we need to understand the worldview of Erdoğan. According to him, the world is full of dangers and dilemmas, especially after the pandemic. All these challenges are listed as pandemic, economic crisis, rising energy crisis, immigration and wars. In addition, Turkey is under attack of foreign powers and YPG. That's why, according to Erdoğan, Turkey has to be powerful economically, militarily, and politically to combat these threats. Secondly, Erdoğan accuses the global governance, focusing on the fact that the big five countries control the United Nations and make it ineffective. The globe is more than five, is a common slogan used by Erdoğan when he is talking about the global governance. About the war in Ukraine, Turkey pursued a balanced approach, but in the early days, Erdoğan emphasized on the legitimacy of Ukraine and underlined the support of Turkey to territorial integrity of Ukraine. He stated that peace is the final solution, but according to him, peace is not feasible, not because of fighting parties, but because of the United Nations and the West, which are hypocritically prevented the reestablishment of peace. He's accusing Western countries and the United Nations and the existing order, meaning that he is using a classical populist tactic to put blame on the establishment. Erdoğan said that Turkey may serve as a facilitator. He said that he doesn't prefer mediator. And Turkey has historical ties with both nations, and he has personal close relationships with the governments of these countries. And despite the lower popularity of the government, public opinion polls show that Turkish public supports Erdoğan's balanced approach to the Ukraine conflict. There may be some cultural reasons of this favorable view of Russia, such as historical legacy, etc. However, Erdoğan's framing of Turkey's role and his role as a mediator, as a some medium power in the region, as a facilitator, etc., seems working in the public opinion. However, we don't know that whether he will be successful to transfer this powerful man image to votes in the polls, and we will see.